Hello, sports fans. It's Friday, October 11th, 2024. Welcome to Cleats by Dre. I'm Dre. Let's talk some sports. New York sports fans, there's a lot to fill your TV viewing cups right now. You now have two teams in the League Championship Series, with the Mets completing a thorough, rarely ever in doubt 3-1 series victory over the Phillies in the NLDS. And now the Yankees matching with a 3-1 victory over the Royals. In the NFL, there's a frisky Giants team, and let's call a spade, a circus going on behind the scenes with the New York Jets. Though I don't think their season is sunk. Far from it, actually. The puck is dropped on the NHL season. Preseason NBA is underway. And Knicks fans have been able to get a first glimpse of this new starting five with a couple new shiny acquisitions. Last but not least, the WNBA Finals kicked off here in Brooklyn Thursday night with the Liberty dropping a heartbreaker to the Lynx in overtime. In what was once a foregone conclusion that they'd win the series. They were minus 260 at DraftKings before the series started. Now it's going to be a battle. If you've been listening here, though, you're aware my heart ultimately resides and remains in Flushing, Queens. So for this episode, I invited an ultimate baseball knower to the podcast for a conversation that crosses generations, but lands on common ground on two key points. 1. Baseball is beautiful. 2. Mets fans are the resilient romantics, often unrewarded, but nonetheless always believing that love is right around the corner for them. So look, please enjoy this conversation I had with Steve Bogacz, Mets fan and author, as we talk about his origins with the game in and before the origins of the Mets, his case for Keith Hernandez to be in the Hall of Fame, and what he thinks of these oh my god Mets. Oh my god. Especially the past few days, wrapping up this Philly series. On to the interview. Folks, by now, if you don't know much about me, I hope you've at least gained the impression that I know ball. That's a saying, right? I watch enough, follow enough. I've learned something about these games. And I'm pleased to bring you today an ultimate baseball knower, Steve Bogacz. Steve has a deep enough baseball prowess that he can proudly claim himself an original Mets fan back to 1962, and with a life devoted to baseball as a fan, as a first baseman, as a manager or coach, and also as an author of a book, Injustice, the Cooperstown case for Keith Hernandez. I know he's floating on cloud nine with me this week with the run these Mets have been on. Having himself served as a family court judge for 24 years, I consider myself honored to have the Honorable Steve Bogacz join me on the pod today. Steve, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing terrific, Dre. Really good, really good. Especially, as you said, with the last 2 weeks that the Mets have had.
Oh my.
It's just been sensational.
I keep saying, oh my God, what a perfect song
Right?
for this team, right? What a perfect one. So we're here talking, it's Thursday night. Mets are off. Mets are actually not playing a game. I'm gonna start, and we'll go deeper in the Mets later. I just have a stat I have to get to you right now. I read per Elias Sports, the Mets are the first team to play 4 straight postseason games in a single postseason where the team trailing entering the 8th inning won the game. No
Oh,
other
wow.
team, no other team has ever done that in 3 straight, and they had 4, and us as fans had to follow along on that. So we deserve a night off and a couple nights off, right?
We absolutely do. As I understand it, they're not playing until Sunday. Is that
Sunday
correct?
night, so
Yeah,
wherever in
yeah.
California somewhere, right?
Somewhere, yeah. Yeah,
We'll see
yeah, yeah.
where. But I just think it's. I was outside bringing the garbage out tonight, and I felt a crisp in the air. And anytime there's that in New York that crisp and your team is still playing, that's a good sign, right?
Totally true.
We don't
Totally
get that
true.
enough. So Steve, let's start. Let's bring you in, right? So where does your love of baseball begin? Where did it begin? Whom do you trace it to? Tell us your story with baseball.
Okay, I have to trace it to my father. I don't know if he indoctrinated me or not because I was too young to understand what was going on. I do know I'm old enough and lucky enough to say I saw New York Giants, Brooklyn Dodgers games live in person at both Ebbets Field and the Polo Grounds
Wow.
when I was 8 and 9 years old. Um,
Wow.
I don't remember much about the games, unfortunately, but I do know I was there,
Mm-hmm.
and I followed the Giants after that um, until '62, and there was something magical about that new team in the National League called the Mets. I mean, I could never bring myself to root for the Yankees. It was just something I can't explain why, but it's just not in me to do that, which is why I stayed with the Giants. My father was a Giant fan.
So real quick, like,
Um,
there wasn't the ill will that the Giants left, like what some fans might feel.
um, I just remember my father being very disappointed.
Sure.
Although probably not as disappointed as many Brooklyn Dodger fans because they were really live and die with that team.
Got it.
Um, but in terms of he introduced me to it, I liked it. We played it in the street as kids,
Mm-hmm.
and there might even be something genetic going on in my family. And my father pitched. He fought in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and pitched on his unit's team um, in between battles. I suppose you could put it that
Oh
way.
boy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then my uncle was heavily scouted, didn't get signed, but heavily scouted. He played in the what was then called the New York Sandlot Classic game at Yankee Stadium. This was 1959. The New York All-Stars versus the U.S. All-Stars. That's how it was set up. New York had so many terrific Sandlot players at the time that they felt they could take on the rest of the country. Of course, they lost that particular game like 11-3. But yeah, my uncle played in that. And then I noticed with my own son,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to indoctrinate him. I didn't want to make him feel he had to be a baseball fan or a Met fan or anything of the sort. So obviously, I would watch games. He had several toys, including a bat and a ball. And he was the one who gravitated to the round ball. First rolling it, then throwing it, then swinging the bat at it. And he went from there. He played his whole life right up through college and summer collegiate leagues, high-end summer collegiate leagues. He played in the Coastal Plain League and the Northwoods League, which are second and third only to Cape Cod among college teams. He also got a heavy look. The Yankees in particular were interested, which would have created a nice conundrum for me.
Wow.
Wow. But they didn't offer him a contract, so they gave me even more of a reason.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
To not be happy with him.
Turn it against them.
But yeah, so there may be some genes going on there. I don't know. It's just to me, it's a fascinating sport. It combines so many things. They say it's a team sport played by individuals, which is absolutely true. It also involves physical skills, but it involves not just baseball IQ, but mental skills. I mean, coaching young kids. I found that some of the less physically talented players picked up the mental part of the game better and more quickly because they needed to rely on that in order to compete. And I don't think the other sports offer that same combination. Because a baseball player's got to be thinking all the time. You're playing in the field, and it's not only what do I do if the ball is hit to me? That's the basic question. But you get to a higher level. What do I do if the ball's hit to my glove side, to my throwing side, to if it's hit hard, if it's hit slow, if it's hit somewhere else? Do I have a responsibility? Am I the cutoff man? Am I backing something up? There's so many aspects that go into it. which is why I love the game. It's a fascinating sport.
So Steve, there might be some football quarterbacks, some NBA point guards listening right now, rolling their eyes a little bit. Like, I just want to dig into like baseball. You see it different in terms of the type of athlete, the type of thinking that goes into it.
Right. I mean, I don't mean to disparage any other sport. Of course, there's thinking. There's
Yeah,
thinking in hockey also.
right. Sure. Of
No
course.
question. No
Yeah.
question. I just don't think it's as constant because the game flows so quickly.
Yeah.
Baseball, you have the downtime between pitches. You can
Mhm.
actually figure out, okay, here's what you remind yourself, okay, here's what I
Right.
have to do
Right.
on any given play.
I mean,
Um,
watching the games, and I played. Maybe there's some genetics in my blood too. I mean, of course, my father, who you know, right? He played some little league. On my mom's side, I think my grandfather played some semi-pro ball in
ah,
Puerto Rico, for all I know. I mean, these are
wow.
more legends than anything. I played up to high school. At a good level, but not a too serious of a level, really dissecting the game when I was playing. But now I see players and I watch the hitters in the box, and I'm just thinking of all the things that are probably going through their head. And like with or without the analytics component to it, that probably brings even more data now. It's an ultimate thinking kind of game. Thinking and then reaction game, right? Because sometimes these hitters to react, it's not as much. You just got to trust your instincts and trust like your hand-eye coordination, right? And
Well,
reflexes.
that's what I used to tell the kids. I mean, even if you get into travel ball and suddenly you're talking to hitters about anticipating maybe a particular pitch in a given situation. 2-0 count, look for a fastball. But the bottom line is you don't think that as the pitch is coming in.
Yeah.
You don't say, "Ooh, there's a fastball. Let
Right.
me swing."
Right.
It's reaction. Muscle memory takes over. But I think the anticipation of it sets it all up. If you're not looking for a fastball, well, you're not
Right.
going to react to it the same way as if you are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. And it is special in that regard. And I got to mention of course my father's going to listen to this. He played beyond Little League too. I know we played some 1880s baseball out in Old Bethpage Village, so don't want to disparage you, Dad, but really no what a great sport. And so you've been involved in it so long, having played yourself,
Right.
having managed and coached. You told me 31 teams you can count that you've managed and
Yes.
coached of all levels.
Actually, no. 40 teams over 31 seasons.
40 teams, 31 seasons.
Some years I coached 2 teams.
So how have you seen the game evolved for better or worse over that time, in the time you've been close to it? And whether it's at the little league level or you see at the more serious levels.
Well, I think at every, well, maybe not the little league level, but all the older levels, the players are just bigger,
Bigger, yeah.
stronger. They throw harder. They're more physically talented.
Mhm.
My issue on the negative side is, especially at the big league level, the inconsistency or lack of fundamentals that used to be such a given. You would watch a game. I would watch a game 40 years ago. You wouldn't, but I would. And everything was done properly. The cutoffs were made. Every throw was backed up. Pitchers covered first without an issue on a ground ball to the right side. They would break immediately. In fact, I was watching the Cleveland Detroit game today, and Class A got such a great break on a ground ball to the right side
The pitcher
that
did. The
I just
pitcher?
remarked. I'm sorry.
Class A, the pitcher. The pitcher got a
Class
great
A, the
break.
pitcher. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. No, not Class A. The level. No, I mean
Huh.
he just got a great jump and made an easy play on a ground ball wide of first base, and that used to be routine. That happened all the time, and now it's hit or miss. I mean, I hate to say it. Sometimes the Met pitchers are a little late getting the first, and it's very frustrating to see that.
One closer in particular, you're saying, and
Well, I didn't want to mention the name, but yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah,
yeah.
and that led to a terrible inning, as it turned out. He didn't get away with it.
No, he didn't.
Certainly, that would
No.
have been the third out.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
What do you think is can you can attribute that lack of fundamentals to? Like people rushing through in the minors, less of an emphasis on it at the lower levels, like
Well, I can only tell you, having coached up through you know men's league, semi-pro, whatever you want to call it, and having followed my son through his collegiate career, I think the fundamentals are soundly taught up through the college level.
hmm,
And I'm almost willing to bet, and I haven't seen enough minor league games to know this, but I'm willing to bet the fundamentals remain intact through most of the minors too. I think when guys get to the big leagues and suddenly you're making multi-millions of dollars, maybe there's less of an incentive to do the little things. I don't know. I
it's
don't know.
interesting,
So
yeah.
that's
Because you would think habits get formed, right? And they get formed through repetition. And so
right.
I was ready for you to say, oh, they're not emphasizing it anymore in like Little League. The way in basketball is comparable where like everyone is shooting three pointers like Steph Curry now and not running,
Right.
plays.
Right.
But I could definitely see that where, are they focusing on different things at the MLB level and they're not focusing on the fundamentals, Possible.
But I would argue that the fundamentals have their place.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
the other day, I forget which game it was. The Yankees were down 2 runs. Verdugo is up, 2-0 count, and he swings at a fastball down and away and grounds out to third base. And I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute. Even if he hits a home run, they're still down a run. They need a base runner. To me, you
Yeah.
have to take that 2-0 pitch. Make the pitcher throw a strike.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
still ahead in the count, 2-1. So yeah, stuff like that. It just
It's interesting. What I've noticed in these playoffs is guys don't hit to move runners over anymore, or the runner on second. And the Mets do this too. When the runner on second, no outs. Sure, you're not bunting, but a lot of pop-ups, right? A lot of
right.
pulls. And I guess that's become a strategy in a bit because they're like, look, one extra run's not going to win this game. Try to bludgeon the ball. But like, yeah, every now and then, we'll see in these games, one run will make a difference. So,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
that's not something that you can just say, go do and do. You have to practice that. You have to, to work on that.
Sure.
Imagine.
Well, what really bothers me in that situation, man on second, nobody out, a down and away curveball to a right-handed batter, and they will reach and pull it and hit a ground ball to short.
Still reach and pull it. Yeah.
And yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you have to take it to the right side. It might go through. I mean, Marte does that very well.
Yeah.
He gets
He's
hits
been doing
through the
that.
right side with a runner on second and nobody out. Sometimes, and if he doesn't, he at least moves him over.
I was gonna say this Mets team generally has decent situational hitting and
Yes, I,
playoff
I
run.
think they are
Yeah.
as fundamentally sound as
Yeah.
any team out there.
Yeah.
And I would attribute that not only to Mendoza, who I think has continued it, but Showalter brought in a sea change with that
hmm
2 years
hmm
ago.
hmm
His first year, the 101 win year. They were
So
so fundamentally schooled.
yeah,
It was a pleasure to watch.
I think this could be a calling for you, Steve. You could be like the fundamental monitor, the fundamental like anytime we can make you a Twitter, an X handle, and you just kind of say, all right, alerts, bad fundamentals, good fundamentals. I would follow that account. This could be something. So good. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Well,
Just
you
kind
do,
of
you do
insight.
get that from Keith Hernandez in the booth on a regular basis.
That's true. That's
He's
true.
always talking about the
Yeah.
fundies, and he's not wrong.
Um, I want to
It's
talk to
not,
you.
and
I
it's
want to
not
talk to you a little bit about Keith also.
okay.
Go
I
ahead.
just want to finish the thought.
Yeah.
It's not an either or. You don't have to only play for one run and play small ball. But why, with a runner on second and nobody out, why aren't you looking to take the ball to
Right.
right field? A
Right. The
lefty can
strategy.
look to
Yeah.
pull, and if he pulls a deep fly ball, hey, it's a 2-run homer, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like John McGraw here.
No, it's and I think to a certain extent there's not as much randomness as people think to the teams that advance in the playoffs. Like the Astros don't make 6 or 7 straight league championship series. They're not doing some of that, right? Those Yankees teams in the late 90s did a ton of that.
Right.
So
Totally.
there's something to
Totally.
be said for
Yep.
being able to win in the postseason. And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
situation
And the
was definitely part of
postseason
it.
games are lower scoring generally
Yeah.
and closer.
Yeah.
So yeah, one run matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, to get into the league and one thing before we get to Keith, Mets fandom in general. What have you found is special about being a Mets fan? Is different, is in our blood as Mets fans?
Well, the easy answer is it builds character.
Yeah.
And for actually, semi-seriously, for young fans, it teaches some life lessons. Teaches you about disappointment, teaches you about not always getting what you want. I mean, Yankee fans for so many years have been spoiled. They get what they want most of the time. But I think, for me at least, being a Met fan makes me appreciate the successful seasons. And that I don't define a successful season as win the World Series or
Right.
not.
Right.
How they play the game. I loved the team and the season 2 years ago. I know they got knocked out in the
Sure.
first three games, and that was disappointing. But to me, it didn't take away. You win 101 games.
Yeah.
For 6 months, you're one of the best, if not the best team in baseball. Come on. What's better than that? We've gotten into this. It's only the end result that matters. I don't quite buy into that. Sure, would I love to win the World Series again? It's been a long time since '86. Yeah, I would. But I loved the team 2 years ago. I loved watching the games. It was a great deal of fun. Very
I
satisfying
think
for me.
I think that's a healthy outlook, Steve, because right, 30 teams, only one's gonna win.
Yeah,
So what
yeah,
you're gonna be down on yourself 29 out of 30 years if you go by the odds? I mean,
exactly.
um on Monday's pod, right? I was talking to my friend Chris, lifelong Phillies fan. Their view was World Series or bust. His view is World Series or bust coming into the year. And uh, that's hard. That's hard. Like I think there's something to be said for being maybe in the playoffs every year, especially now that there's six teams in each league. But like
Sure,
I think there's got to be different reasonable levels of success, as your measuring stick.
sure. And the Phillies, unfortunately for them, when the Braves got hit with all those injuries and fell out of the race, they spent the last 2.5 months with no need to step on the
Yeah.
accelerator. They had a
Yeah.
big lead. They played well. Sure, you play well with no pressure on you. It's easier to do. Um, and maybe they couldn't kick it back into gear
Yeah.
enough.
I think that
And
there's an analysis in there where I feel like teams that and it's not no fault of theirs, right? They had a great start.
right, what else could they do?
You just
Yeah,
you don't get those big blood kind of boiling games. Um, I wanted to say one thing on the Yankees comment too, because my son, my oldest, my 7-year-old, he actually got to watching a lot of the games this week with me.
right,
I actually like the 5 o'clock times. I didn't like him at first, but if he comes home from school, does his homework, and wants to watch with me, great. And he
sure.
said at school, I asked him if there's any Mets fans. He's like, not many, lots of Yankees fans in my class. And I was like, well, they're 7-year-olds. I'm like, okay, well, I guess their daddies had a lot of success when they were younger, so they're trying to pass that on to them.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, it's there's something a little. I think there's a special neck of the woods for the Mets fans. Special dreamer. Coper, any kind of word.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different breed of fan.
Yeah.
In fact, the old that just reminded me for the first time in all these years, the Met fans' nickname in the press in the early '60s. I don't know why, but the reporters referred to them as the new breed.
The new breed,
The
like
new
the
breed, and
fans
then it fell out of
themselves.
use. Maybe around '66, '67, it fell out of use. But for the first few years, yeah, all the articles in the tabloids, especially the Daily News, the Post, they 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 referred to the fans as the new breed. Yeah,
Well, it probably attracted some people that weren't as down with whatever the Yankees brand was, the Yankees vibe.
right.
Um, I've heard the '60s were a wild time. Maybe that's part of it. Someone should look into that.
Really, really. But yeah, so we've always been a group apart
Yeah.
from others. Yeah.
Well, there's that misfit vibe, right? Maybe that's why
Right.
we embrace Grimace and by the way, Grimace, what a great uh metaphor for a Mets fan, right? Like first of all, the word grimace,
Right.
we grimace often, and then a
Totally.
purple
Yes.
amorphous blob that, just kind of is happy to be there. Like it's just funny in a lot of ways. Um, but let's talk about your book because what an accomplishment,
Okay.
right? So, um, for the listeners, right, the book is Injustice: The Cooperstown Case for Keith Hernandez. So, our listeners, right after this episode, go buy it it's on Amazon. So you wrote, really you're arguing, right? You're using your law background to argue for the Hall of Fame inclusion, really of a Mets legend. Can you just
Yes.
give us a taste, right, of why Keith should be in the Hall and also why you think he isn't in? Just to
Okay.
give some breadcrumbs.
Well, looking at how people view the Hall of Fame, they it's a contrast. Sometimes it's a contrast, and I don't think it needs to be, but between what they call the eye test, more traditional view, traditional statistics, and a player's reputation in his time. And then there's the new breed of analytics that comes into play. And then there's the split between offense and defense. A lot of people complained about Harold Baines getting into the Hall because he was a DH for some of the time, and when he played the outfield, he wasn't a good outfielder. Mm-hmm. So does that make a Hall of Fame player? I don't know. But to me, Keith Hernandez qualifies on all four levels. And I'll throw some statistics at you to try to back that up. First of all, the traditional view, the eye test. The 5 seasons between 1984 and 1988, he had the most cumulative MVP points in the National League for those 5 seasons.
And what's an MVP point? Is that like the votes, like
that gradation thing? It's 15 points for first, I think, 10 for second, and
got it
all the way down.
5-year span.
And 84 to 88, he did not win the MVP. So you can build up your points in one big year. Yeah. He didn't do that. So to me, that's sustained top echelon excellence. And then you can go a little further. Between 79 and 86, which includes his MVP year in 79, he was the third highest in cumulative MVP points. Not first baseman, everybody in the National League, third highest. And if you want to extend it out further, 79 to 88, he was the fourth highest. And the people ahead of him when he was third highest were Mike Schmidt and Eddie Murray.
Heard of them?
Yeah, I think so. And then throw in Andre Dawson, also Hall of Famer.
Of course, yeah.
For the 10 seasons. So to my way of thinking, he more than qualifies on the traditional level. Now, if you look at analytics, I hate the name of this analytic, WAR.
Sure, yeah.
No one understands what a replacement player is.
Yeah.
I wish they had come up with some different title for it, because I think the methodology behind it is sound. You're trying to cross compare a whole line of statistics to get a score, and then you can compare that score across eras, which is the first time I think we've been able to do that. It was always the arguments between generations. Oh, DiMaggio was better than Mays. Oh, Mays is better than Griffey, that kind of thing. So I think WAR helps that. Problem is, one of the components of WAR is what they call DWAR, defensive WAR. And DWAR, and I'm a former first baseman, so I take it personally also. But
no bias, no bias here, right? Yeah.
You can't define DWAR the way they do. They look at just the statistics. I mean, here's a comparison. greatest fielding third baseman ever, arguably, was Brooks Robinson. His defensive WAR was 39.1. Keith Hernandez, to my mind, the greatest defensive first baseman ever, 0.6.
Oh God.
Now, I'm not saying he should be equal to Brooks Robinson. Robinson played a harder position,
Yeah.
no question. But that larger disparity, I don't think so. I mean, some of the things they don't track when they're doing defensive WAR. Throws in the dirt. How many picks versus how many doesn't the first baseman come up with? If he doesn't come up with it, the error's on the thrower, not on the first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
Holding the bag on poor throws. How many first basemen leap to get a throw and then they come down, they don't land on the bag?
Mm-hmm.
Then the guy's safe. But that's not calculated into it. Stretching to the throw. So many first basemen stretch straight out and then reach to the side to catch the throw. Well, Keith didn't do that. He waited to stretch until the throw was on its way and he knew where it was going, because he knew how much run the throw had from any given fielder, and he would stretch to where he maximized both which corner of the base he stretched from and his stretch itself. He always caught the ball out in front of his stretching foot. A lot of guys do the split, but meanwhile they don't catch the ball near the foot. It's further back. So why split? You know. And then Keith did something that obviously you can't track, but back in his day when sacrifice bunting was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be again in the future, who knows?
Right.
But right now it's pretty downplayed, but okay. Well, he discouraged sacrifice bunts. He charged so hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He made it very difficult to get a good bunt down. And there's that famous play that the double play they turned when Gary Carter was in the game late against Houston in, I think it was 86 in the regular season. First and second, nobody out. Guy put the bunt down. Keith picked the ball up on the third base side of the mound, in front of the mound. Threw it to Carter, got the lead runner. Carter threw a bullet over to Backman at first, and they got a double play.
Wow.
And that all happened because Keith got right in on top of the bunter. So there were situations over the years where the opposing manager would want to put a bunt on, but thought better of it because Keith was playing first. So, and how do you quantify that? I mean, I don't think you can. I think it's very difficult, but it's something he did that impacted how the game was played.
Right. So great case for it. Why do you think he didn't get the call and hasn't gotten it?
Well, actually, if you got 2 more minutes, I have more stuff to give you as to why I think he should be. And then I'll address that because it relates to this. Okay, so, I mean, the bottom line is with the whole defensive WAR and the downplaying of first base in general in its calculation, even though Keith is viewed rightly or wrongly as a glove first, his WAR is almost all based on his offense. So then you say, okay, how does that stack up against other Hall of Famers or the Hall of Fame first baseman? Well, a couple of things. For the 13 seasons from 76 to 88, he had the highest WAR in the National League of all first basemen in the National League. And he was second in MLB only to Eddie Murray. And forget first baseman. From 79 to 87, among all players in baseball, Major League Baseball, this is 9 seasons from 79 to 87. He had the 4th highest WAR for that time period, behind Mike Schmidt, Rickey Henderson, and George Brett. No-brainer Hall of Famers, right? And he was next. His WAR for his career was 60.3, and that's higher than 10 Hall of Fame first basemen.
Yeah. Oh, first baseman. Oh, wow.
First baseman, yeah, higher than 10 first basemen who are already in the Hall. He's got a higher WAR. And again, I'm not arguing that WAR is the be-all and end-all, but it's a good, reliable analytic for comparison purposes. Now, a guy named Jay Jaffe, a sabermetrician, came up with a variation on WAR called JAWS. The Jaffe wins above replacement scores. And it's in certain respects superior to WAR because WAR rewards longevity. If you have 3 super years and wind up playing for 21 seasons, well, unless you're a bad player, you're going to get 1.5, 2 points, 1.7 WAR every year, and it all adds up. Now, what Jaffe did, he created a system where he averages the career WAR with what he calls the 7-year peak WAR. They don't have to be in order. Your best seven years for a particular player.
Mm-hmm.
He averages them out.
Got it.
So he puts a focus on the guys who can do it for 7 years, and he puts a focus on the career as well. And using that analytic, Keith has a JAWS score of 50.5, which is higher than 8 first basemen already in the Hall of Fame.
I'm sold. I'm sold, Judge. So why isn't he in?
Okay. I think 2 reasons. One, I think there's perhaps unintentional, but I think there's a bias at first base looking for home runs.
Yeah.
And he hit 162. I mean, he wasn't like a singles hitter. In fact, his career OPS was 821, and his career OPS plus was 128, which again compares favorably with guys who were in the Hall. The guy was a legit extra base hitter. He didn't hit as many balls over the fence as Steve Garvey, for example, or, guys like that. I also think the whole notion of anyone can play first base in the big leagues from a defensive standpoint. And I think that's probably true in terms of making routine plays. These are big league athletes. Sure, they can play first base. My question is, how well can they play it compared to how well Keith played? I mean, he to me, he redefined how first base is played. Not only preventing the bunts, but he used to play incredibly wide of the base. So back in the 80s, the Mets infield was playing a precursor to the modern shifts. Toffel or Backman could play up the middle more, and whoever was playing shortstop could play more in the hole because Keith was so wide of first base. So, I mean, he had this impact on how the game was played. So I think it's the whole notion of, anybody can play the position, and he didn't hit 200 home runs. I think that's worked against him.
My casual lens is the home runs, because I remember when I was coming up as a fan in the 90s, looking back at Keith's stats, and baseball cards back then, batting average, home runs, RBIs.
Sure. Oh, I remember. Yeah.
No slugging percentage, right? Nothing where total bases matter.
Right.
And,
right.
Like you said, I'm looking at his baseball reference card now. Like he led the league in doubles in 79 with 48.
Right.
That was his MVP year with the Cardinals. And so to me, you're making great points at the defense part, but I don't understand when did we decide that sports writers decide who's in the Hall of Fame, right? The sports writers trying to fit guys into their mold, right? Fit their narratives. So it's unfortunate.
But that's traditional. I think it goes back to the beginning of the Hall.
Yeah.
I think they always had the sports writers do it.
Yeah. I'm just saying
who saw more games than the writers? I get it. I get it. But I'm not even saying it's a conscious bias toward power at first base, but I think the voting results demonstrate it.
Does he have any chance to get in still through a veterans committee or anything like that?
Yes, in fact, next year, what committee is it? I didn't write that down. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Some kind of committee.
There's a committee from the baseball writers that puts together the ballot. Okay, I think they put 8 to 10 players on the ballot, and then the contemporary era player committee, which is made up of 12 to 16 former players, executives, they put this together. I don't know who puts it together, but somebody does. You have to get 75% of that vote. So 8 out of 12 or 12 out of 16 or whatever it is that gets you 75%. Whoever gets those votes gets in. Fred McGriff got in with the last.
Do you think he'll get in?
Well, if they all read my book, maybe.
Yeah. Well, let's you keep going because I heard you got the chance to meet Keith. Keith found your book and you got to talk to him and you got to meet him, right?
Yes. Oh, I did. But he before I met him, he left me a wonderful voicemail on my phone. It's actually a funny story. I'm watching TV with my wife on a Sunday night. This is October last year.
Mm.
And I see this call come in on a number that's not familiar, and I'm thinking spam call, and so I don't answer it. And then we finish watching whatever we're watching, and I check my phone and I see this voicemail. And it was Keith. And he left just such a wonderful voicemail. I mean, just very happy with the book, very high praise for the book. And that was nice. And then meeting him was terrific. Yeah. I found out, by the way, that the booth at Citi Field is very small because that's where we met him. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's an incredible. I mean, incredible. I'm glad you got to meet him. Incredible piece of analysis that you went through, folks. Find the book on Amazon. It's really I grew up parallel doing this because I actually started this podcast. My very first episode was on a snub as well. It was on Francisco Lindor not making the All-Star team this year.
Yeah.
And there's just something, I guess, kindred in us as fans, as like when we see someone is deserving of something, that's subjective. And obviously Lindor went on to have a second half that he continued what he was doing. Am I going to be? I mean, I think at this point, I got to think Lindor is a shoe-in Hall of Famer, but I've been.
You would think so.
I've been mistaken before, so maybe I'll be writing a book like you one day about him. So parallels there. But with that, let's segue. Let's get into this team this year.
Okay.
So even before looking at the playoffs, watching this team this year, watching the Mets, 2024 Mets, anything seemed different or similar to Mets teams in the past? Anything that draws your eyes, and whether the recent past or not so recent past? Like, how does this team so far fit into the Mets story?
The obvious comparison, just for the way they're winning certain games, is the 86 team.
Oh,
86 team was never out of
royalty. Yeah.
I'm not saying they're as good as the 86 team. I don't believe they are.
Right.
But if you want to look at how they played and how they played this year and how they played back then, a lot of similarities there. Similarities to the 73 team that had injuries. They had a bad record early, but that was more caused by injuries than bad play. And then they put it together and they took a run all the way to the 7th game of the World Series.
Right.
To me, there's also a comparison to the 2006 team because people don't remember, perhaps, that when they went to the postseason, their postseason, they were minus Pedro Martinez and El Duque. If they had both of them, you got to wonder. But they had, and I always said Rick Peterson never got the credit he deserved. He got 15 win seasons out of John Maine and Oliver Perez that year.
Yeah.
So, and I had already mentioned the 2022 team 2 years ago, the fundamentals. A lot of similarities there.
So the 06 team is my best Mets team that I remember. I mean, wire to wire, right?
Oh, yeah.
With the way that team came together. But it's just it's goosebumps hearing you compare them to the 86, 73. There's a little bit of magic with this team.
Oh, there is more than a little.
Yeah, a lot. It's a lot of magic lately.
Yeah. I mean, there's that famous clip from 73, the ball hitting the top of the wall and coming back to Cleon Jones. He relays it to Garrett to Hodges at home, and they get the tying run out at home.
When was that, in the playoffs?
No, it was late in the season when they were making their run. It was
Because
against the
how
Pirates.
many games back did the 73 team come back? They were
Oh God, they were not as
down
many
big.
as the 69 team, oddly enough.
Oh, really?
69 team was, I think, 12 and a half or 13 games behind in mid-August. And they
Yeah.
went on this incredible run, like 40-10, to win comfortably. They not only passed the Cubs, but I think they won
Yeah, the
by
Cubs are
6
good.
games, something like
Yeah.
that. It was crazy. The
No.
73 team was similar to that. But they were so far under 500. I mean, they won the division with 82 wins, 82 and
Right.
79. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And somehow, and I didn't see it coming. This team finished 16 above 500.
yes,
Right.
yes,
And if you had said that earlier in the year, you'd say they easily made the playoffs, but this team did not easily make the playoffs. It's a testament to the National League. Um, so let's look at this series. We're on to the NLCS.
right,
We beat the Phillies,
right,
who were really the top team. Some team people would say they're the top team in the league all year in the
right.
majors. But
Given the Dodgers injuries, you have to say
yeah.
that. Yeah,
And
yeah,
given,
yeah,
and if you even go to the majors, right? The Yankees have had their flaws,
for sure.
hot, cold, and also battle tested the Phillies, right? The last two postseasons with some magical runs of their own that didn't go all the way.
Right, right.
So the Mets won 3 games to 1. Um, just looking at this series, I have some themes that I could think of, but what stood out to you the most in these 4 games? And where should we start? Like what really stands out to you?
I mean, the oh my God moments. They were never out of a game.
Yeah.
They would get behind. They fell behind late the one game. The Phillies came up with however many runs. It was 6-4 going to the ninth, and Vientos hit the home run to tie it. I mean, and that wasn't the first time. The Brewers, the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just, yes, sometimes the magic is there. There is, I believe there is such a thing to a degree in baseball. You need talent, obviously, but you know what? One sometimes you have one of those years where things just fall.
Yeah. It's similar to
And
my first team because I kind of I almost am too believing too much in the magic now. Where like I haven't been that nervous in these games. I feel like the Mets were in control of the whole series. I feel like they were the better team.
yeah, you just wait. Well, guess what? They had the best record in baseball for the last 4 months.
That's right.
Then they beat the Brewers. Then they beat the Phillies. It's a legit question to say, is there a better team?
And maybe it's the
I
Padres.
don't
And
know.
the Padres' record over the last 100 games is around with the Mets,
Well, that's true. That's true.
but
That's
look.
true.
So the 4 games the Mets, and I'm going to do a tennis style. They won 6-2, 6-7, 7-2, 4-1. I looked
Right.
up do you follow win probability at all? Do you believe in any of that? Like,
I mean, I look at it, but I
yeah,
don't. I mean,
I
one
think it's
at bat
cool.
changes it by 10 points sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes it might, but like I looked at what innings did the Phillies actually have a higher win probability in the game this series?
Right.
So obviously, game one, the first 7 innings of the Wheeler start, right? The first
Sure.
7 innings, but then the Mets came back in the eighth. In game two, the Mets were in control for the first 7 innings.
Right.
Then the Phillies 8 and 9, but like you said, Vientos tied it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Game three, the Mets were winning the whole time. Game three
Right.
wasn't in doubt.
Right. Right.
Game four, yeah, the last game, the Phillies had the higher win probability innings 4, 5, and 6.
With the 1-0 lead. Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I still felt I was nervous, but I still felt like we're gonna come back. Like at that point.
I didn't expect it to be so dramatic,
Yeah. Yeah. I
but
mean that's because
yeah, I mean,
this team has some
I still
flair.
felt confident at that point. I felt
They
good
have some
about it.
flair. But it's like outside of after the first step, after the Wheeler start, the Phillies only had like the higher chance of winning any of the games for like 4 or 5 innings the rest of the 3 games. So
Oh
like that's
wow.
just
Yeah, that's
strange to like feel like they were in control. Like it wasn't an upset.
mhm.
It
Against
wasn't
a
an
really
accident.
good team too.
Yeah.
The Phillies are a really good team.
Yeah.
I mean, no getting around that.
Well, anything else? What anything else stand out about these games? What you've seen from many of the different units,
Um,
pitching, hitting.
the way, and winning does this, I think, but the way people have accepted their roles. JD Martinez was an everyday player his entire career. Now he's sharing DH with Jesse Winker.
Mm-hmm.
And then JD pinch hits for him the other night with a righty in the game, which I'm still kind of scratching my head about. But I'm thinking maybe Winker's back was acting up. I don't know. But and you listen to them when they're interviewed, and you can sense an underlying unhappiness with guys, even if they're saying the proper thing. It's like, and I don't get that. I don't get that from these guys at all. They're all accepting. Peterson, he threw the most important game of the late season, that Sunday game against Milwaukee.
Oh, we were reeling.
7 great innings, and now he's in the bullpen. And they interviewed him after the game last night. To me, I found it totally genuine. He was totally fine with it. He goes, "Hey, this is the postseason. You do what you got to do, you know." But he meant it. So when a manager has that at his disposal, Mendoza's going to feel free to make. He's not going to hesitate to make a move. He's going to feel free because he knows he's got the support of the entire team.
Well, also, how much credit does Mendoza get for building that culture?
Oh, massive. I'll admit, I was skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
He was coming from the Yankees. And it was like, really? He'd never managed before. And I was a Showalter guy. But guess what? He got it done. He's won me over for what that's worth. Yeah. I'm sure he'll sleep better tonight knowing that.
And there's other leaders, obviously leaders in the clubhouse, and whether it's Lindor or Nimmo, they stepped
have
up.
To give Lindor the C opening day next year. They have to.
The captaincy.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
He probably should have been the captain already, but okay. Make it happen next year.
A point I wanted to make on the balance, you mentioned the roles, because I think it's something about the balanced hitting, right? 1 through 9 in the lineup. And we saw that in game 1 especially. And there's a stat per Mets-merized. The Mets scored all 6 runs in the first game without recording an extra base hit. They've only ever done that one other time in their franchise history in the postseason. I'm wondering if you can take a guess at that. 6 runs without recording an extra base hit. One other time in franchise history in the postseason.
Well, the only team that makes any sense to me is maybe the 06 team.
Well, I'll give you it's maybe one of the most famous games in Mets postseason history.
6 runs. When did 6 runs in 1 inning you're talking about?
No, in one game. In one game without an extra base hit.
How about the game 6 against Houston? Or Boston?
Well, so now I got to go back to the stat because I have a game 6 in 1986, and I immediately jumped to the World Series, but it was a game 6 in 1986,
right?
So I guess that could be Houston or
Did
Boston.
You say without a home run or without an extra base?
Without an extra base hit.
Okay, probably Boston then would be my guess.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that's a game that lives in Mets lore. I know.
Oh, I know
what happened there. So. Yeah, this team, but then the next game 2, they win it with 4 home runs, right? Or they lose, but they hit 4 home runs.
Right.
So they're hitting, their offense is hitting on all cylinders.
It is
balanced.
And it's not the same guy every night.
Yeah.
I mean, Lindor and Alonso switched off, but Nimmo's been there too. And even for all his strikeouts, Alvarez has come up with some big hits.
Yeah. Completely.
In big spots. And who can downplay, oh my God, Iglesias? I mean, the guy, how was he in the minor leagues? How did no one want him on their roster?
The Mets never pick up guys like that, right? We pick up the guys that go the other way. That's like, we thought
really?
It'd be something. I mean, and I give Stearns a lot of credit,
right?
Because
totally.
We had guys like that. We had, Joey Wendell at the start of the year. We had Narvaez. He was quick to get rid of those guys. Like, they're not cutting it.
Last night's postgame, Gary Cohen made that point.
Yeah.
He says not only has he picked up guys who fit right in and they're making their contribution, but also the guys he's tried earlier in the year who didn't are no longer here, like
Accountability.
Joey Wendell.
Accountability helps build a culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I
I have
get the
two.
impression Mendoza holds them accountable in the clubhouse too.
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
have two more themes.
Okay.
One is the starting pitching. That's a strength that came on the second half of the year. That was not here all
Yeah.
year.
Totally.
And now there's depth. You have, I mean, Severino, Manaya's been incredible. Quintana, I mean, we got Senga coming back. We'll see what we get from him. And like you
Yes.
mentioned, Peterson seamlessly roll into the bullpen. Not easy for a young guy. And also McGill. McGill was very solid down the
He
stretch.
was. He was.
This is a strength. It's a reminder of like I brought up the 2005 White Sox come to my mind, where like that's an extreme example. I think God, who's their manager? Ozzie Guillen, right? I think
Yes.
he
Ian. Yeah.
pitched was Burley, Freddie Garcia. He pitched them like 9 innings every game. That's not
Yes.
that
Yes.
era's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think of the 2019 Nationals, who we keep kind of like comparing this team to in terms of worst to first.
Right.
They had Scherzer, Strasburg, and then
Yeah.
Corbin.
Strasburg was still healthy.
Still
Yeah.
dominant, and
Yeah.
Corbin, and like the guys
Patrick Corbin was the star of that postseason.
they'd go to the bullpen
Yeah.
on their bullpen day. They'd
Yep.
pitch out of the bullpen in the game.
Yep. Yep.
You see Mendoza willing to do that. So what a surprise with this starting rotation.
Yeah. It seemed like a patchwork that Stearns put together to start
Right.
the year. Just have 5 starters.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed to me like they had 5 number 3 starters. They didn't have an ace and they didn't have a number 2. Once Senga went down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's
but
been
Manaya is now an 8. Wow. You got to bring him back, don't you think?
for game one.
No, bring him back next year.
Oh yeah. Well,
Contract.
I think it's an option.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
I think it's a 2-year deal, but then it's
It's his option.
yeah. So they're gonna
Yeah,
have to
so
pay.
he'll opt out.
They're gonna have to pay.
Yeah. Well,
And I don't like.
that's
I'm
why
not
we
even
have
thinking
Steve
next
going.
year because people are saying bring back Pete on a lifetime contract. I'm like, just let's, because a team is built coldly, right? Like cold, hard
Right.
calculus.
Totally.
This
Yeah.
team's here. Enjoy this team.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think the biggest point you kind of hit on is just Francisco Lindor, right? The legend. This is a legend being born. I'm curious, the season he's having, where would this rank for you in the best Mets seasons of all time? Like, how would you think about it, whether a hitter or a pitcher? Like, where is this starting to go with the clutch moments and the offense, the defense?
Well, without even stopping to consider any others, it's got to be top 10, if not top 5.
I would think so.
And just as you said, I mean, the clutch moments.
Yeah.
A lot of guys can hit. What did he hit? 268 with 33 home runs
Right.
and 30 whatever steals. Okay. A lot of guys can do that. But look at when he's getting the hits. Oh, my God.
In the last month, there he goes again. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
There he goes again.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It seems like every time it's a big spot, he's going to come through.
Man, it's incredible.
And when was the last time we felt like that?
It's like we're making up for it all in this last month. We're making up for all the times we haven't felt that.
Really, really.
I mean, the Mets have never had an MVP, so that that's saying something in and of itself as to at least at the hitting side.
Right.
I think David Wright was like second in like 2007, but
Which
this
is
the
probably
clutch
where
moments.
Lindor's going to wind up.
It seems unmatched by one player to have this many clutch moments.
I know, and he's the last 3 years I've been saying this. He's the best fielding shortstop in the National League.
Yeah, but he doesn't win Gold Gloves.
I know. I don't understand that.
The guy can't get recognized. No All-Star games, no Gold Gloves.
Yeah. And you see him play every day, and you say, "Wow." I mean, he's a machine on routine stuff. He never messes those up, and then he makes spectacular plays on top of that. I mean, yeah.
All right.
He's got such a great head to the game. And I don't know if you've noticed, when he leads off, when he comes back to the bench, he's always talking to the next guy coming up.
Saying something.
Yeah. he's giving him
Yeah.
useful information, whether it's how the pitch is moving or I don't know, but he's I'm sure he's communicating information like that. Hey, his curveball's a little flat today. Ooh, fastball's got a good hop, something like that.
Many moves in May worked for us, but like Lindor going to the leadoff, Nimmo
Yeah,
going below.
yeah,
Like I get Mendoza was tinkering. He's still tinkering. Well, up until the last week, he keeps tinkering with the lineup. But I think
it's
he's
true.
set on something now. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, we're very lucky right now.
I mean, that's one of his big pluses. I think Mendoza. He's not committed to
Yeah,
something that's not working,
very
and
flexible.
so many managers
Right.
fall into that rut, and he doesn't. So
Did you ever
kudos
fall
to
into
him.
that rut? Your 40 teams over 31 seasons? Did you? We're not gonna adjudicate you here.
um, I probably did on occasion. Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing, I was superstitious. If I had a particular lineup I was using, and this is with the men's league team, if we would go on a winning streak, I didn't change the lineup, even though inherently I knew I should. I wouldn't mess. I'm a
I'm
big believer
similar.
in the baseball gods.
I'm a similar thinker in that way. Just do it again, run it back out.
Don't mess with it. Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
So let's look ahead. So NLCS starts Sunday night. Where would you like to see the Mets travel to Sunday night if you had to pick?
Ah, it's such a tough call. I mean, if the Dodgers were the full Dodgers, I'd say San Diego, but the Dodgers aren't. San Diego, as you pointed out, had almost the same record
Hmm.
over the last 100 games as well. They will not be easy. And the Dodgers are the Dodgers. Even with half a team, they're not going to be easy either. So I'm not. I don't have a strong preference. It may sound like a cop out, but
That's
I really
fine.
don't.
No, it makes
I
sense.
really don't have a strong preference.
I've thought about it. I want the Padres.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Any particular reason?
It's twofold. One, obviously, a little payback for 2022,
Okay.
right? A little payback
Right.
for that,
Right.
but also like watching a little bit of their games and their fan how much their fans are into it. That's a hungry fan base. I mean, they've never won a World Series.
Right.
They've
Right.
never, so those games back and forth, I think those would be a joy to watch. I mean, almost more baseball fan perspective than me just hoping the Mets win. Like,
Sure. 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 Sure.
because I agree that the Dodgers rotation is in shambles. God,
Yes.
it would be great to beat. Why am I'm gonna mess up his name? The Japanese pitcher, Yashinobu.
Yamamoto.
I don't.
I'm,
Whoever Steve Cohen wanted to, for $350 million to
yes.
sign with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Be fun to beat him and Otani. But I
That's
feel like the
true.
Padres, I like because I like watching, the Tigers and Guardians. I like these teams that are starved. Even the Yankees. Yankees are starved. 15 years.
Well.
I'm going too far. I'm going too far there.
Really?
We don't feel bad for Yankees fans.
No, I can honestly say I don't. I don't. 27 world championships? Nah, I'm not going to feel sorry.
Yeah, but
And the
let's
Mets have
enjoy it,
two.
right? Let's
The
enjoy this
Mets have
ride.
two. I
Met,
mean, I'm a Ranger fan in hockey.
yeah.
So
So
I wasn't alive, thankfully, for the whole 54 years, but I was for a lot of it. And now they're on another 30-year run with no Stanley Cup. And the
goes so
Mets
quickly.
now go back to 86. I mean, that's almost
My
40 years here.
my third episode ever, I think, was the Great New York Championship drought we're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's partly why I was watching the Liberty earlier tonight. They actually lost in overtime.
Oh,
But I mean the major sports, it's been since 2012 when the Giants won. That's 12 years, but that's also 108 seasons if you count the nine New York sports teams.
right.
It's a big
Right.
drought.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But look, there's hope. The Knicks have optimism.
Yes.
The Mets and the Yankees obviously have optimism. We thought the Jets had optimism. We don't
Really.
know what's going on there, but New York's due, very
No,
due.
you left out the Rangers. They have a decent shot.
Hockey's not my strength, but you're totally right. They're
Yep.
a favorite this
Yep.
year, so maybe they get to it first. We'll see.
Well, I know who I want to get there first,
Me
but I'm
too.
not. I'm not looking past Sunday night.
No, let's enjoy it. This is
Yes.
I
Yes.
think I think I texted out yesterday, right? This was torture, and it was the bottom of the sixth. The base is loaded. Like playoff baseball is torture, unlike any other sports playoff. Every
Right.
pitch, it's like a steady drum beat.
Yep.
But, but, but I said it's beautiful torture because it's just fun. It's just fun to
Totally.
enjoy.
Totally.
Steve, so thanks so much. So much baseball knowledge, so much you offered up. Folks, run out, find his book, Injustice, the case. You give me the name.
The Cooperstown case for Keith Hernandez.
Perfect. Check it out, guys. And oh my God, right? Let's go Mets.
Really, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. All right.
Okay,
Take care, Steve.
you too.
Okay. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. If you haven't, catch up. A lot of great episodes recently, all about the Mets. We're getting into baseball. Share this episode if you know anyone in your family that's a baseball lifer like Steve. We'll be coming back to the other sports. Don't worry, but this is a magical run. Let's enjoy it. Let's go Mets. Please have a safe weekend, everybody. Take care.